fact, Russia's now talking to Iraq. They're going to do some bombing of ISIS, which, frankly, I think is a great thing. Let Russia bomb ISIS. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? They want to bomb them. Let them bomb them. Bomb the hell out of them. No, bomb them.
All right, I think that's Donald Trump doubling down on let Russia bomb ISIS. Of course, the controversy here is whether Russia truly is bombing ISIS. General Jack King, you have your doubts, and you were surprised that, I imagine you're surprised that Donald Trump doubled down on it.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with Russia bombing ISIS, and certainly if they're going to do it in Iraq, they should do it as part of the coalition. But frankly, their focus in Syria, as we all know, by the evidence of where the strikes are going, is against the moderate opposition forces, number one, and Jabhat al-Nusra and al-Qaeda affiliate, number two, both of whom have been threatening the Assad regime, put him in a precarious position, and that's why he's in Syria, and that's where his focus is.
You know, as a general done a lot for this country, General, I'm not blowing you smoke, and you hear that crowd react the way it did to let Russia deal with this, not us. And that got rounding applause, and as you know, those comments have not hurt him in the polls with the rank and file in the Republican Party and those outside the Republican Party. What do you think?
Well, I don't have any problem with Russia being a part of it, but I think we got to be involved in it.
He's saying no, the hell with it. Let them sort it out. Let others sort it out. We've spent a lot of lives, a lot of, friends who then become enemies. Enemies become friends. We don't need that.
Well, the fact of the matter is radical Islam is on the rise. Russia has some limited interest in it because of their southern border. But we have got to be involved in this. Our strategy is completely inferior to actually being able to achieve the desired end. So we have problems. The American people, I think, know we also have problems, that we're taking half-hearted measures. We're not doing very well. We're failing. And if we continue with the strategy we have, we'll lose. That's the reality. It's in front of us.
Do you think Russia's getting into another Afghanistan here, its own Afghanistan, where it had to leave the country with its tail between its legs?
No, too smart for that. They know the thing that gets you bogged down in the country is not air power, it's ground power. 10 years in that war.
Well, there's talk that they're going to send in ground troops,
No, they won't send in any
Really?
large contingent of ground troops. No, they're not going to do that.
Okay.
They may send some advisors in or some special ops guys, but they're not going to get bogged down in a ground war as far away from their country as they currently are. Even that air base is isolated and vulnerable, to be frank about it.
Interesting. General, thank you. Very good seeing you
Yeah,
again.
good talking to you.
As the General was talking, we are getting word. I told you about this Hillary Clinton flip-flop on this trade deal. Not a flip-flop, but she certainly never intimated that she was going to be coming out against this Asian trade deal. The White House is saying that Hillary Clinton did notify the White House, or at least her campaign did, about her opposition to that trade deal. But as Secretary of State, we are told, and we want to make sure we get this right, that she was there when the early parts of this were being put together, and she expressed no such opposition. But back then, she was a presidential candidate. We shall see. All right, one of my favorite guests ever on this show is now with me in the flesh. You guys reacted raucously when you heard him the first time talking about European Parliament member Daniel Hannan. Many of you recommended, as did I, that he should become a U.S. citizen and be allowed to run for our nation's highest office, only because he spoke clearly, lucidly, and not crazily. Now, Daniel, good to see you. You have looked at our political process with great interest. You said last time you were here, America has to be the beacon, has to be, lead the way. And you've looked at our crop of some of our candidates. Donald Trump comes to mind. Bernie Sanders on the other side comes to mind. And you've not been impressed.
In general, I'm very impressed. I think there is a great crop of Republican talent.
You're beating around here.
But this Sanders-Trump thing, please don't do this to me, cousins. I'll tell you. I mean, you might say this has nothing to do with me, and I'm a foreigner, and why should I be advising you? And that would be fair enough. Although, I mean, we don't really completely think of you guys as foreign. We think of you as kind of half family. But
I still think you're bitter about the whole American Revolution.
Yeah, well, but I'm always going to look up my favorite Italian-American business anchor while I'm here. But I have kind of slightly gone out on a limb, urging other countries to copy your primary system with all its faults, because it tends to weed out the duds. It tends to identify the really obvious cranks.
But it takes a long time.
By and large, though, it's worked. I mean, there are plenty of politicians who are wrong, who are venal, but you think you've got problems, spend a moment in another legislature. Spend 5 minutes in the European Parliament, where I work, and you see what happens when the politicians get handpicked by the party leaders. Primaries are, I've always thought, a great way of dispersing and democratizing
power. Well, what if the primaries make
yeah.
official a Donald Trump or make official a Bernie Sanders? It would represent the will of the people, right?
And that would slightly terrify me, as well as making me look a bit of an idiot.
Why? Why? What do you have against Trump?
I'll tell you what. I mean, he likened himself to Reagan the other day. Reagan, okay, they were, they're both ex-TV people and they're both outsiders and all the rest of it. But Reagan grasped that you could be anti-establishment without being constantly crass and foul-mouthed and attention-seeking and narcissistic. And this is a serious country. At a serious time when the world needs leadership, you should not be playing games, right? We are looking for more. And this is a kind of almost withdrawing from world politics and being frivolous about it.
But, you could say frivolous, I understand that. But there are a lot of people who look at this and say we've had outside the box or different type of candidates. Andrew Jackson comes to mind in 1824. People who were not your necessarily cup of tea or your gentle on the soul type candidates on the stump who mess things up, were very loud, very, very vocal, very in your face, but very effective.
There's a difference between being an outsider, which you could say the system was designed to encourage. It was supposed to be regularly refreshed like this. They would have been horrified, your founders, at the idea of yet another Clinton-Bush kind of, oligarchy. There's a difference between being an outsider and being someone who is just attention-seeking all the time.
He's a billionaire, Daniel.
Sure, and great. Good luck to him. And I'm all in favour of billionaires doing well. I've got nothing against the guy personally. I've never met him. But you just
I don't think he would like you the way you're talking.
He doesn't seem to like Fox very much either, as far as I can tell.
Now, that's fine. But, just keep talking.
But, you were just listening there to this thing of saying, it's great for Russia to be bombing. I mean, Russia is on the brink of starting a confrontation with a NATO country.
But what did you think of the cheers he got for that?
You know what I'm hoping? Is that this is letting off steam. This is people flicking two fingers at the whole system.
It's been 90 days of letting off steam, and he's still tops in the polls.
Well, let's wait and see. But, I have huge confidence in your system, and I really hope... I think you deserve better than that, and I know that we expect better than that.
I think you underestimate the acumen and the skills of a Donald Trump, and reading... get away the niceties and the grays and all that. That's just what I'm saying.
But anger is not enough. I can understand
I built a career on it.
Right, well, and it has its place, right? But on its own, it's never going to get... You've got to offer something better.
Well, when across the pond, I know you're a different breed there, but I mean, who are the candidates that intrigue them? Like back home, I mean, they never liked Bush. But, I mean, they kind of liked Obama, right? They certainly liked Bill Clinton.
Foreigners love Obama,
right. Who impresses them?
Out of this lot?
Yeah.
I mean,
the whole
everyone knows Hillary,
right?
And she has a certain standing, and she, of course, can be very charming and so on. Among those who follow U.S. politics, I think there's a certain interest in Rand Paul and in Ted Cruz as people who are sort of saying different and interesting things. I mean, that's how you can be an outsider without being a complete lunatic, right? That's how you get... There's a difference between being refreshing...
You're being British and proper now. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah. You've got your own crazies.
Oh, yes.
Who's this opposition leader? Looks like Erwin Corey, but he sounds like Bernie Sanders. What's his story?
I would actually swap Bernie Sanders for Jeremy Corbyn.
Really?
I am running out of words to describe how extreme this lurch by the Labour Party is. I mean, the best I can do is to quote a couple of his own positions. So he's cool with Iran having a nuclear bomb, but he doesn't want Britain to have one, right? He's determined to have self-determination for Palestinians, but he doesn't want it for people in Northern Ireland or in the Falkland Islands. He wants to mine coal, but he doesn't want to burn coal. I mean, this guy, I suppose, even more than Sanders, he is... trying to revive an ideology that we all thought had been buried under the rubble when they pushed over the Berlin Wall.
But we've since learned the pendulum swing, right?
Well,
after Reagan, wasn't that long before we got Bill Clinton?
And here's
after Bush, it was not.
And here's the serious point, Neil. And I think that actually Trump and Sanders and Corbyn are all expressions of this, as is Syriza in Greece and the SNP in Scotland. I think what we're seeing is a delayed reaction to the bailouts. I think the bank bailouts were such a wrong-headed policy because they served to demoralise and delegitimize the free market system.
And a lot of people, they're upset anyway. These protests in Belgium, these Air France workers who were tearing at the clothes of the Air France executives. There's obviously palpable rage here, and that's why Hillary Clinton, I think, probably switched on this trade accord. But, you know, 7 years after these bailouts, Dana, were they worth it? Do you think they were worth it?
No.
What we set in place?
I was against them at the time. I think
yes,
you were.
You were.
And we were in the minority then. I say we were in the minority. We were in the minority on the airwaves. I mean,
Everywhere.
we were always in the
Everywhere.
majority in the opinion polls. The American people, like the British people, never fell for that boondoggle. But all the politicians did, pretty much, except a tiny handful. So you and Ron Paul and me and one or two others, right? But I think up until then, the free market system looked fair and meritocratic. And the far left always used to say, no, no, it's a racket. It's a way that the rich kind of have this smoke screen to keep themselves wealthy and powerful. And actually, you know, they help themselves to the profits when it's going well, but as soon as things go wrong, they get subsidies. For the first time in my life, that critique from the far left began to look justified.
That's right.
I mean, I think their prescription is woefully wrong, but their analysis, their diagnosis was not bad, right? It really was a crony, rotten moment. And I
now
think
the
we're
world
seeing...
expects it and depends on it.
Right, and I think that there is an anger against it which on one level leads to Trump or equivalents around the world, and the more common one is the far left reaction. It's given a new lease of life to hardline socialism. But I mean, come on, this is America. I mean, you guys are not Greeks, you're not French. We expect more of you than this.
All right, I'll pass along your comments to Donald Trump. Daniel Hannan, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
We have the citizenship papers here. We're going to be working on that in the break. When we come back, though, Bobby Jindal, I don't know how you feel about Bobby Jindal, but
I'm a big fan.
He's got a tax plan out here that requires everyone to pay something. It's called skin in the game. Bobby Jindal is next.